One. Hello, Kaitlyn, and welcome to the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We are going to be discussing something that you probably have never thought about before, and it might be your human design type. And if that is something brand new to you, then today you are going to get a crash course in not only all things human design, but the way in which you can utilize your particular human design to aid yourself in operating and building your business. And Kaitlyn has come up with this philosophy and way of life for her business and the way she serves her customers. And I'm just obsessed with it. So we're going to get down to all the little bits of information. Human design, guys, this is something you will want to continue to explore, and you can do so with Kaitlyn. We'll have links below in the show notes for sure. But Kaitlyn, I would love to know where marketing started for you in your career. I know that human design has been the newest thing that you've been exploring for yourself and your career, but where did marketing start for you?
Yeah, so marketing started, I probably would say college because I got a degree in marketing. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to be in fashion. And my mom was like, you should get a business degree. And I mean, it was very much like her just telling me what to do. Because most of the schools I was looking at didn't have fashion merchandising and things like that. So got a degree in marketing, took a job that was more in fashion and not marketing as my first job in New York City right out of college. And then my second job was at the Wall Street Journal in the marketing department. And that's what really kicked it off from there.
Wow. That's a very high level. You got to start off creatively and then work your way up to kind of a sales machine, because being in the advertising department of any kind of media outlet means that you are the one helping to keep the lights on. And that is not only a stressful place to kind of sharpen your teeth, but I wonder, do you feel like that gave you the upper hand in your organizational skills and kind of building out systems? Because for a publication like the Wall Street Journal, the level of thinking that goes into an advertisement, let alone getting someone to purchase it, let alone it being an effective ad that gets the end user to use it. Like, there's so many worlds that you had to be mindful of while doing your job. Like, what was that time like, and
Yeah.
what did you take from that?
Yeah. I mean, I was young. I was in my early 20s. And I always say that it was like my Devil's Wear Prada years. So it was a lot. It was definitely a lot, but I wouldn't change it for a minute. You know, again, like I worked really hard. I learned a lot. And like you said, it was just like so detail oriented. And we were actually responsible at the time for launching their luxury lifestyle magazine. So fashion dreams come true. I got to be around a lot of like fashion brands and things like that. And work on programs to bring their brands to life, and had the opportunity to go to Europe during fashion weeks and actually be there alongside like the associate publisher and all of that. But there is so much detail on the back end for events and different pop-ups and ways that people really want to be exposed. And what I think is interesting, and I don't always think about a lot, but recently I've been thinking more, it's because today, especially as personal brands, we're so focused on like social media and then of course content creation. But then, so this was in like 2000, probably like around 2008 ish, right after kind of like the market crash and everything. And there wasn't content creation wasn't really like a thing yet. So it was still like selling standard ads in a magazine. Website stuff was just kind of taking off. And then a lot of people wanted events. So it was like, and giveaways and things like that. And like, how can you highlight my brand beyond my ad? And so we had to get really creative. And we were at one point, I remember we were part of like a street team out front of Fashion Week in New York City, like standing on the corner, handing out flyers for some brand to get that attention. Like we were doing a lot of guerrilla marketing, things like that. I think the cool part now is helping people think outside the box, because we can get such tunnel vision around Instagram metrics and how to create a reel and all these little details, when marketing is really so much more than that. And you can reach people's attentions way beyond just an Instagram reel.
Yeah. I love all of that. And you hit on so many points. And I think, you know, I really I gotta like pat us millennials on the back because we were the ones who have evolved through. I mean, I don't know about you, but my earliest memory of a TV was the clicker one where you had to like turn the dial. Okay. And then,
Fixing antennas.
yeah, yeah. And then in college, I went to school for PR. So I learned how to send faxes and write a traditional press release. This was literally my junior year was when Facebook became just for students. And I went to a
Yeah.
Catholic school. So it was almost like banned at some point and then not. We're like, whatever, you don't even know how to ban this. We're just gonna go on the internet and use it. So like nice try. And that was a really pivotal moment for me and all the people around me because we realized like, oh snap, boomers don't know anything about what's going on right now. We are in
Yep.
total and complete control. And then evolving from that and letting culture and being a young person, it really does give us late 30, early 40-year-olds a really beautiful place to be in a position for marketing and truly helping great brands that deserve the ability to keep doing good with what they're doing by providing them with this almost corporate level of marketing and understanding that we have because we were the generation that in essence
Mhm.
created these systems and these platforms over time with our usage,
Yep.
our desires. What did we like? What were we looking for? And I just love so much that it's kind of come to a time and a place where everybody has to agree that we are the crux of technology and society finding a way to come together that does things for good and is also continually evolving and helping business to be easier for those to do, and I think gives it an easier entry point.
Yeah.
um does that like resonate with you at all, because we've had pretty
Yes.
similar careers, just different sides of the.
Mhm. Totally. And I think we got to see how more traditional sales and business in the media world, how that was happening. And then we got to see the introduction of all these other tools and how we were moving more towards content and social media. And so it's kind of like now we get to pick the best of both worlds because there was something that was working from the beginning. And to just throw that all away doesn't totally make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember when the Instagram stories first came out. And I was like, this is the stupidest thing ever. And then I also remember Snapchat. And for our events team, this is when I was working in Philadelphia, and our events team were trying to figure out like we could get like a special Snapchat filter or something for our event, and we had to like submit for it, and was it going to be there in time? And then we were like, are people even going to use this? But just experimenting that with that. And that was interesting as a media brand and a larger brand, like trying to use these features that we didn't even know how to do it. And so I think I always say marketing is one big experiment, and you have to just be okay with taking a risk and trying new things. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. Then we try something else.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is people just get so stuck on the one thing. And it's like you're stuck on this like hamster wheel of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it's like, well, if that's not working, let's try something else. And there are other opportunities out there.
Yeah, it's really the Wild West. I think it's really cool that we had to pivot a lot because I think it's given our industry and our particular age group the upper hand in being able to navigate crisis and like
Mm.
get around the hard parts of business and not let them stall you out. I think there's a certain amount of grit that was kind of infused in it being our job to have to figure out what to do because that was your position and I was hired by people to do it. And I think there is this, it seems like there has been a through line, and
Mm-hmm.
it is what I would consider the more traditional things that we learned in college
Yeah.
that are holding the technology together. And they're just the principles of how you explain who you are. Are you
Mm-hmm.
doing it in a manner that makes sense? And ultimately, I think the 2024 version is, does it align with who you are and how you feel and how you exist, which is what drew me so much to what you're doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have to have a conversation about this.
Mhm.
Guys, just so you know, we live in the same town and we are in a networking group together. That's how we met. And I'm sure our lives have crossed a jillion times while we were both in Philly. And I just love that you have created a career for yourself in being able to help people with their brand vision and making sure that it's going to translate with their marketing, and also make sure that it's going to be valuable for them and valuable
Mhm.
for the effort that they're putting into it. So, could you tell us a little bit about what your transition was from working for media into doing your own thing and kind of establishing what your services were going to be?
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I wanted to share was, what I thought was interesting was I worked for a lot of like big brands and big media companies when I was in New York. And then when I came to Philadelphia and started working for Philadelphia Magazine, what was kind of cool and I think made the transition to like personal brands and things like that a little easier is even though Philadelphia Magazine has a big name in that market, it's actually it was like a small family run business. And so in those roles, we actually were a very lean team. That's where like I really had to start thinking outside of the box and like coming up with these sponsorship programs and things like that. And it's not like, oh, then we hand it off to like another team. It's like we kind of did everything.
Wow.
And on a local level, some of these brands we were working with, even though they were big on a local level, it's like they wanted to connect with real people. And then it was more about like working, what influencers were we working with and creating the content there. And it helped me get in touch with like, okay, how can we make an authentic connection? And I think it's so interesting because these big brands, all they want to do is connect through real life people so that they can make an authentic connection. And then you look at personal brands and they're just trying, not everyone, but a lot of people are trying to almost be like everyone else because they think that that's the way it's going to work for them. When really, everyone wants this authentic experience and it's really more about like being you. And so I always find that interesting. Like the big brands are trying to like connect with the personal brands and the personal brands are trying to be like everyone else.
It's
So that I think is part of the reason why alignment and energy are so important to me today in marketing. And those are things that I didn't focus on before.
yeah.
Um, I ended up here, and it's a kind of a very full circle moment. 4 years ago, I was laid off during the pandemic, and I had already had a side gig, and I was kind of looking for something that was more purpose driven. So I was in a completely different business. I marketed myself, and I still enjoyed the fact that I could use all of my marketing tools on my own business, but never thought I was going to be helping other people. But then I was a part of so many different masterminds and business groups, and I would end up helping colleagues as accountability partners as like, oh, I can help you do this. Oh, you should do this. And then it was kind of like just coming so naturally. I'm like, why am I not using this muscle, this strength? But how can I approach it differently based on how my life has changed and how the world has changed in these past 4 years? So, incorporating healing tools and mindfulness and meditation, which I was certified in, and then human design, because as a personal brand, it's 80% mindset and how you show up.
Yeah.
So important. And I was learning that on my own. So, 7 years ago when I was thinking about going out on my own and doing freelance marketing, I think, gosh, why didn't I just do it again? I would have saved myself a whole bunch of time. But the truth is like you have to be on the journey and the journey is right for you and you can't force things. And I had to, as a business owner, see what it was like and
Mhm.
put myself in those shoes before I could start helping other business owners. And that's when I realized that, yes, the strategy and the creative ideas and all the experience that I have from over 15 years of working in media is so important. And I can now put that to use. But the energy and the mindset is just as important, if not more.
Yeah. It's so funny. I literally almost 90, I'll say 98% of every interview I've done, they started their business during COVID, except for a few brands that are like 100-year-old brands. I've spoken to a few of those. And it's always literally verbatim the same thing. I knew that I wanted to put my talent towards something that made me feel better about what I was doing. I wanted to feel fulfilled. I wanted to feel passionate about my work. And I know that I have a purpose that's bigger than what I'm doing right now. And this was like a journey leading up to it. And I think for your particular case, what I enjoy the most is that I, in having these conversations, I'm seeing and understanding that people took a leap of faith in themselves during a time that was so tumultuous and crazy. And then the years that followed got even more batshit crazy. And, it was those that took a leap of faith in the earliest part in 2020 when things were really uncertain and we're like, whoa, okay, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
To then years later be in a position to help those that have a little later to the party decided they're ready to do something with their lives that feels meaningful. Now you particularly are in a position to where you're helping literal people that have decided they want to do more with their life, create structure around it so they have an actual business. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me is really beautiful because you are literally doing for them what you did for yourself during a time to where it was you betting against the world because the literal world was down and there was
Yeah.
no other option for you or for a lot of other people that decided during this time to start a business. So I commend you for taking that leap of faith. And I really think it's so beautiful that you're helping the person that used to be. Like that's Ed Milet's favorite thing to say about the good people he knows in his life are helping who they used to be, and
Yeah.
in that struggle that you went through to get to this place, and the journey had to be right, the timing had to be right. And I love so much that you decided that before even knowing anything about human design, which
Mm-hmm.
just shows that you were truly on the right path. And I would love to know what your earliest days were like since you were starting during a really
Mm-hmm.
uncertain time. And certainly for I know my business took a bit of a hit during COVID because marketing was something that no one really needed. Everyone was on their Instagram and it was just hard to grab attention aside
Yeah.
from mindless scrolling. So, what was that like for you starting during a difficult time to grab attention?
Yeah. I think so much of it comes from, again, that within place because I was leaving out of a corporate job. And although it was upsetting that I was laid off and all of that, it was like I had been wanting to leave, and the universe always knows, right? Like I had been, it was very comfortable, but I was doing this side gig. I was very passionate about that. And I just wasn't taking the risk. I just wasn't taking the leap. But like, this is what I wanted. So it was like, exactly. No one was marketing. I was doing special projects. I was basically, my role at the time was doing special projects, content campaigns for larger companies. No one was spending that kind of money anymore. They're like, okay, this is the obvious thing. Like it wasn't a surprise, but it still was hard. And then I had two little kids at home at the time there. I think they were 4 and 6, and trying to navigate like online schooling, all these things. Like it just was meant to be. But even so, I look back and I'm like, why couldn't I have just let myself be? And I was just trying to force things still. I'm like, all right, I have to get this business up and running. I have to do these things. I have to make the salary I was used to doing. Like, and so we end up moving to where we are now. And there was just so much. And I ended up in the beginning of 2021 doing a mastermind, which I'm so happy I did. But interestingly enough, when I was in it, it was to start a business. It was completely different. It was in low tox consulting, helping women like detox their homes, completely different. And so I was just so focused on the mechanics and the strategy of like the launch and all of that. And I learned so much from that. But when I got to the launch, I hated it. And even I was having a few clients come in and all of that, and like what should be deemed a success, but to me, like it was so unsuccessful. Like I should have had more clients come in. And I realized that number one, I didn't define like what success meant to me before going into it. I was only just looking at other people.
Yep.
And number two, I wasn't allowing myself to pivot, even though I wasn't finding joy in it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And those are two things that I've learned now with human design, that listening to your intuition, allowing yourself to pivot when it's time to pivot,
Mm-hmm.
and not doing things just because you feel like you should do them. Like those are all things that were coming up in my human design chart when I learned about human design. So it was such like a breath of fresh air
Mhm.
to now know this. So I always say that learning and understanding how to like listen to my intuition and differentiate that from the shoulds and the ego, that it was huge for me in business. And then also human design to really help me figure out what's next. And it's okay to try new things. If it doesn't work, it's okay. And I think at first I had shame around it. It's like, oh my gosh, I just spent all this money and this time on this mastermind, and now I'm not even launching this business. And like, even from a relationship standpoint, like with my husband, he's probably, he's at like, okay, we just made this investment. Where's the, where's the money? Where's the business that you said you were going to start? And that's really hard. And you have to do so much inner work as an entrepreneur to be okay with that, and then figure out your next path and have the confidence to continue forward and not feel like everyone's looking at you thinking, oh, she's starting another business. Oh, this is a new direction. It's
Mhm.
hard.
I resonate so much with that because I we'll get into this later. I'm a manifesting generator, guys, okay? So when you hear what that means later, you're going to understand why this statement makes sense. Before knowing what I was, I constantly felt like a failure. I constantly felt like I had no direct path to anything, and it really made me mean and nasty to myself.
Mm,
And that was kind of the first gift that I got from recognizing that, like, you know what, this does make sense. Like, I am this profile type, and I should be kinder to myself, and I should highlight the fact that I'm creative and I'm able to juggle many things at once, all at one time while working on them all consistently. And that's my super set, and that's my skill set. I'm not a failure. I am different. And then around that time, the talk of neurodivergency started popping up, and being and thinking and acting in different ways. And what does work look like for you? And what does productivity look like for you with work? So I love that this conversation has become so mainstream now that lots of people are hearing about human design, because I really do feel like that fits in so beautifully with explaining how your personality type is going to dictate how you move through life. And I think
mhm.
we leave a personality to how we speak or how we interact with someone else, but it goes down to how you brush your teeth, when you brush your
Oh,
teeth, like what are you watching at night? Like, there's so many parts of you don't even know are on autopilot. And whether they work for you or they don't is something that you might not be aware of yet if you don't really know what your operating system is to begin with. So could you
totally.
like go in on that, please? Because I
Yeah.
really love that you understood that first and then have now the system of human design to kind of
Mhm.
apply to what you already knew interpersonally.
Yeah. So yeah, in early 2021, so like around the same time that I started that mastermind and launched that business, that was the first time I had a human design reading done. And it blew my mind. So there are 5 different energy types, and human design, if you're not familiar with it, is a blueprint on how you are meant to show up in the world energetically. And it is tied to astrology, if you're familiar with astrology, but it's not just astrology. So it also brings in some beliefs from Chinese background and then also the Jewish Kabbalah. So there's 3 different things influencing this, and it's really started in the 80s. So it's still pretty new. The cool part is no matter, kind of like astrology, no matter where you get your chart, it's the same. And so you get kind of like a birth chart, and there's so much information, but just knowing like the top line information can really change your life, because there's 5 different energy types, and I so happen to be a generator, which is the most common. And one of the things I learned about with generators is that we have life force energy, and we're meant to be on this earth to lift other people up, but not the way that you would think. You lift other people up by actually following your joy. And what happens is generators have so much energy and can do a lot and can multitask. So you end up being like, oh, I can do that for you. I can do that for you. And it ends up being like overcommitment, people pleasing, all of these things. And so when I learned that, and the person who did the reading, she said, the best thing you can do right now is write down a list of commitments and things that you have on your calendar and just like commitments you have in life. What's like a hell yes and what's a hard no, and clearing all of the no's. And I remember having some commitment at the time. And like the next day, I literally just went to the person and was like, honestly, this is just not working for me. I need to let it go. And it just felt like my shoulders just dropped. It was like, and so 90% of what you hear and what you learn is going to be things that you already know deep inside you, but you may not be living in alignment. And, you know, and maybe you'll learn some new things too, but really it's a validation, it's a permission slip to live life how you're meant to live. Because you could have an energy type that is a smaller percentage of the population. And so the way that you're meant to live doesn't really look like everyone else. And you might feel shame around that, yet it doesn't matter. Like you're going to be misaligned if you're continuing to show up in your life in that way because you see other people doing it, or because your parents or a teacher or a mentor at some point in your life told you this is the way that you need to be doing things, although that's not how you're meant to show up. I'm happy to go through the 5 energy types if you think, yeah, that
Yeah,
works.
yeah, let's hear
Okay.
them.
So I mentioned generator. So that's the most common. And like I said, you're meant to chase your joy, live life in joy. And by doing that, you actually give other people energy and you lift the world up, your life force energy. And again, you want to make sure that you're clearing the shoulds and things like that. The next most common type is manifesting generator, which Sara mentioned she is. And manifesting generators have a lot of similar qualities to generators, but then they also have the energy from another type, which is called a manifester. So you have a lot of energy to go, 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 but you also have a lot of this energy to lead. And sometimes what happens with that is that you like to try a lot of different things and you have a lot of different passion. Like when you hear someone that's like multi-passionate, a lot of times they are a manifesting generator. And like Sara was talking about earlier, she felt some shame around like not having it figured out or following one path and then wanting to jump to the other, because you're told when you're a child to like figure out that career and you're just going to stick on that one path. But that's just not the life that is meant for a manifesting generator. And you are actually meant to move quickly. So if you feel that ping of like, this is not for me anymore, it's like, okay, move on to the next thing. Or like, this is still for me, but I also want to try this. And people will be like, you're doing so many things at once. This is confusing. No, like, do it. How does that feel for you?
100%, all the way down to like I will rent maybe 15 library books. I read quickly. So like I'll go through like 7 in a week and I'll get to a place to where I go to pick it up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to read you anymore. And it's not that I'm like flippant. It's just I know in my heart I don't have any room or any desire to waste any time on that topic anymore because it's like no longer important to me and I've moved on.
Yep.
Which before I would have been like, no, I rented it. I have to read it. Like, nope. I took it out of the library population. I got to read it, got to complete it, got to get it back. But it was just
Mm-hmm.
me uh, going in loops because
Mm-hmm.
I felt obligated to do something rather than just being like, no, I don't want to do it anymore, and
Yeah.
just keep it moving and not judge myself for that. I was always thinking like, God, you're a loser. Like you always
Mm-hmm.
are, going here, going there. But it leaning into that has been the thing that has set me free. I would say the last 3 years specifically has been me just being like, F it. Let's just go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm
Yes.
floating down a river that the universe is paddling me on. So that's, it all resonates. But I think to get to a place to where it resonates, you probably have to just jump off the mountaintop and like let the wings build themselves on the way down. That's kind of how it felt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love that you said the word free, because specifically for manifesting generators, when you feel in most alignment, you feel satisfied and you feel that freedom. And a lot of manifesting generators even find that through physical travel. Like maybe you like exploring different places, maybe it's hiking, maybe it's actually going on trips a couple times a year, or you don't stay in one home for a while. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can explore that freedom.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be physical travel, but that word free just
Yeah.
really highlights that.
Yeah.
And then the other energy types. So then projectors, they're the next most common, which I think it's only like 20% of the population. And projectors are very interesting because I feel that they are the new age entrepreneur, CEO, and leader. And although it's a smaller percentage, I seem to run into projectors more and more in the entrepreneurial space
Mm-hmm.
because projectors have a unique take on something in life or business. There is something that you do differently, and it just seems to work really, really well. And you are an expert in that. And if you can make that your business or your main passion or hobby, something you spend time on, that's your sweet spot. And that's where you're going to find a lot of joy, satisfaction, success. And actually your signature sign of success is actually success. And also what I find so unique about projectors, which is where a lot of the conditioning comes in, is that you're only meant to work like 4, maybe 5 hours a day because you do not have as much energy as the other generators and manifesting generators who are taking up a lot of the population. So, this whole idea of like, you have to hustle to get what you want and all of that. No, that doesn't apply to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to rest. It's okay to take a break. You can take a nap in the middle of the day. Or maybe rest looks like something else for you. Maybe it's connecting with nature. Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's listening to music. But you are truly not meant to do all of that. And when I see a projector in business, like on many social media platforms, trying to keep up with all the different marketing tactics or like having so many different service offers, and they seem burnt out, that's the first thing that I bring up with them.
Yeah.
Let's simplify your service offers. You don't need to have 10 things. What if you have 2? And then where are we marketing? Okay, let's focus on 2 or 3 right now. We don't need to have 10 again. So, how can you streamline? How can you simplify? And how can business just be easy is really important.
Love
And
that.
then the last 2, so then there's manifestors, which is the other side of the manifesting generator. And that's about 8% of the population. And manifestors are the only energy type that are meant to initiate, and they are true leaders. So what I mean by that is manifestors, when they feel like that ping, they need to lead. They need to tell others about what they're doing or what they're seeing, what their vision is. I would say they're visionaries, CEOs, leaders, things like that, entrepreneurs. And it's not to say that other energy types can't be those things, but we're all kind of waiting for the manifestor to put it out there, which sounds silly, but in a lot of ways, when you see it in action, it just feels really good. So like, I'm a generator, my husband's a manifestor. So when he's not initiating, it's actually when our wires get crossed and we have a harder time with communication.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, I might think of that like, oh, he's like so bossy, but actually no, like when he's like more specific about something, I can then respond to it. I might not agree with it. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But like I have something to respond to. And so manifestors a lot of times shrink themselves and shrink their voice because they want people to like them, and they feel like they shouldn't always be the one that's like telling people what to do or which way to go and all of that. But then you're out of alignment. And manifesting generators have some of that energy. So sometimes you could even feel more like a manifester.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's particularly difficult for women who are manifestors or manifesting generators who lean more towards manifestors because you have a lot to say, you have a bold opinion, and you want to lead, yet society is telling you no, like putting you back in your place. And whenever I meet women who are manifestors in particular, like, speak up. People actually want to hear from you. When you use your voice, it's magnetizing.
Mm-hmm. Very. I think is there one more?
There's one more. The last one is reflector, and it's only 1% of the population. I now know, I think, 2 people that are reflectors. It's very exciting. And yeah. And reflectors are like the chameleons of the world. And within our body graph chart, we have all of these like energy centers, and they're open or they're closed and they mean different things. Well, reflectors are all open, meaning that they're absorbing and taking on everyone else's energy. So I always think like they're probably the best actors and actresses in the world. I would be really interested to know like how many famous actors and actresses are reflectors. But what's so important is how can you use that to your advantage and not to your detriment, and make sure you're not in toxic environments, toxic relationships, giving yourself a lot of alone time. So like if you are out and about and like exploring the world and doing your thing, that's great. But then where can you go to retreat to kind of process the information and make sure you're not just doing something because someone else, said to do it and you like made yourself into chameleon for that energy.
Yeah. It's so amazing to me, and I'm sure everyone listening is like not shaking or nodding their head throughout hearing their particular type. But there's a certain sort of like being seen in those recognitions of like, oh shit, I do that. Like, no, you're talking about me.
Mm-hmm.
And like for example, when you were saying manifestors can come off bossy to people, blah blah blah. I did notice at a certain point in my life I needed to start changing the words that I use when I am
Mm-hmm.
being directive, or I would be giving like some insight, kind of like, hey, you know what you should do? Like I used to be like, you should do this and blah, 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 and like
Yeah.
just unleash, but like with the best of intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think learning your type helps you to navigate how you interact with people that are not your type,
Yes.
because my husband is also a manifesting generator. However, he's more on the generator side, I think. So he's way more chill with his creativity and his brainstorming. I am like a cannon. Like once I'm off, it's bad. And I do tend to lovingly like word vomit on people for long periods of time when I get going for something for them in their business. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't work with everybody. In fact, it probably overwhelms almost everyone besides a manifester or someone leaning on, I guess, the manifester side. But what are some ways that you would suggest that someone get to know their type in order to be able to move more, not only more smoothly through life, but as you suggest, more smoothly through their business?
Yeah. So first, download your chart. So if you don't know what type you are, you can go to, I think it's my
Oh,
design,
we'll put it
myhumandesign.com.
in the show notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll put it in the show notes. And you do need your birth time for it. So that's something that's important. So birth date, birth time. And once you get it, you might just be like, what is this? But I think just understanding just the energy type to start is really helpful.
Mhm.
So like I had mentioned, the 5 different energy types, even just learning, reading up on that. There's so much information on the internet, podcasts, things like that, to really understand like what is this energy type, and then just kind of like trying it on, like what's something that makes you feel a little bit different from hearing this about yourself, and then just playing with it. Like for me, it would be like, well, what if I just played with the idea of saying no to this invitation to another family gathering or asking for help for something, and I just instead was like, you know what? It's not going to work out. Um, Saying no to an opportunity, things like that. Or for a manifesting generator, what if you just played with the idea of like, I've been really wanting to learn pottery. I'm going to start just trying something new on the side and just seeing how it makes you feel. And I always tell people to kind of document your day. So whether it's in a journal or on your notes app, at the end of the day, can you highlight where you kind of felt like misaligned? So for every energy type, the misalignment feels different. For generators, it's frustration. Manifesting generators, it's also can be frustration. It can also be a little bit of anger. Manifestors, it's anger. Projectors, it's bitterness. And reflectors, I can't remember right on the top of my head of that one right now. But when you feel that out of alignment, take note of it. What was happening? Like that pause of like, why do you think, and like maybe how could you have acted differently in that scenario? if you were fully listening to your design and your energy type and listening to kind of your like gut instinct, and seeing how maybe you would have gone about that, not in a regretful way of just like, okay, I can move forward a little bit differently tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's like super helpful. And then if you want to dive deeper, having someone do a professional reading for you is going to unlock so much because there's so many other details in it. And the other thing that I think is so important to look at is your profile. There are two numbers in your chart. And the first number is generally something that you are going to resonate more with. It's more of like the internal personality trait. And then the second number is more of the external personality trait. So it's more about how people see you, which is really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was a 2 and a 6. There's 6 numbers, correct? 1 through
There's
6?
six numbers. Yes, there's six
Yeah.
numbers, and they all have a different kind of characteristic to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I'm a 6-3. And the three, again, didn't really resonate with me as much initially because it wasn't how I was feeling internally.
Mm-hmm.
But it opened my eyes so much because threes are all about like trial and error and experimentation. So sometimes I feel a little bit more like a manifesting generator at times because I have this 3 line that's actually so strong in me. And you can look at it negatively from a place of like shame because it's like, oh gosh, I have to go through this again of this trial and error and failure. But more so, like, what are you learning and then able to share with others so that they don't have to go through that? And then people actually look at it as wisdom that they can collect along the way from you. So there's that. Everyone has two numbers. And I don't think anyone actually has the same number, like a 6-6, for example. I think that it's always like a different combination, I'm pretty sure. But that's very much around your personality. So I always find that that's really great. And I think knowing your numbers are very helpful in business as well, because your energy type can tell you one thing, like kind of like the type of business you should run, how you lead, how you operate on a day to day. But then the numbers are more about like, how are you showing up in your business? Like if you're promoting yourself on social media, or, you know, how are you marketing your business? If you have a 3, like, yeah, you're going to be trying all the things. If you have a 2, you're more of a hermit. You might not even realize that you have this hermit quality, but you also are naturally gifted at something, and figuring out what that is may not be known to you right away. But like, if you can figure out what that is, it's just going to make business easier.
Mm-hmm.
All these little golden nuggets that you learn.
Love it. So tell us how we can work with you and what can you help us with our life and our human design stuff and our business and putting the two together.
Yeah. So I'm always open to doing a human design reading, like a straight reading. It's a 90-minute, we get your chart and we just dig deep into all the things. And it's really cool because there's even a piece of it that tells you your life's purpose, which is so freaking cool. So I usually save that for the end, but we go through the energy type and all the things that we talked about today, but so much more, so much more.
Yeah.
And so that I feel like is a great first step to just know your human design and unlock that. If you're someone that already knows your human design and you're more focused on business, then I work with people on aligned marketing plans, and I utilize human design in creating that aligned marketing plan. So while we're not doing a full reading, I'm providing you business insights based on your chart. And then we talk about like what feels good, what doesn't. So it's really about marketing that feels good. And where are you having challenges? And usually when you're having challenges in your business and we look at those and then we look at your human design chart, there's an intersection of like what's happening. It's going against your design and you're trying to do something because someone else told you should do it. So that's fun because we can create a marketing plan that feels good for you and is aligned, and it doesn't have to look like everyone else's.
Love that. I love that. So you also have your Build Business Beyond Instagram free masterclass, and I will put all the links in the show notes for this. You have a Winter 2025 group mentorship waitlist that is up. So, guys, if you are like, Kaitlyn, you're speaking my language. I need to know more. I'm ready to dive deep. There is a wait list that you can grab. So I'll put that in the show notes. And then you have another free mini course.
I
Tell
do.
us
I
about the
do.
mini course.
Yeah. So
I'll
I've
put a
had
link
that.
down for that.
That's been on there for almost a year now. And I think it's great for anyone who is just getting started. Like maybe you're pivoting from the corporate world into the entrepreneurial world, or like maybe you've been doing your business for a while, but you just feel misaligned from it. It's
Yeah.
so important to figure out your purpose first. So that's a 4-day mini audio course. Like you could literally probably do the whole thing in one day, but I recommend spreading it out over 4 days. It's super easy. It has a workbook to journal to different questions, and it helps you figure out your life's purpose and then how to turn that into a vision for your business.
Love that. Guys, do not delay in at the very least signing up for that free course, because Kaitlyn is going to save you years of dawdling around, when in reality, the thing that you think is going to make you more money will not, and satisfy your life will not make you more money and satisfy your life than the thing that you were meant to do and you're afraid to dive headfirst into. So take this course, get on the right path, figure out your human design with Kaitlyn, dive deep. 90 minutes sounds very juicy, and like you're going to get to really know yourself and how to be an absolute pro at running your business, even if it's brand new for you. And I think in general, I told Kaitlyn this at the end of a workshop that we did at our networking group, but there are so many people out there explaining what human design does, and it is beautiful and it's great and it's a wonderful place to start. But I think that the most forward thinking way to apply it to your life is if you are in this entrepreneurial phase of life and you are ready to move with autonomy and intention and authority over what feels good for you and what you know that you can do good for others with. And it takes working with someone that both understands that journey and also values and prioritizes that path. So it's very common to hear and really love human design, but I think the beauty of it is taking that information and moving with purpose in a way that's going to help you to pull through what your actual life's plan is, and then go about going out there and doing good for the world, because that is certainly what we need more of right now. And Kaitlyn, I thank you for making that an easier pathway for people to take by kind of leading them along that journey.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love talking about human design. I think we could probably go on for hours.
For sure. Well, I have a final question that I ask all my guests, and it's this: Kaitlyn, how do you make your life rich?
Oh, how do I make my life rich? I would say I make sure that I have time for myself, even if it's 5 minutes alone every single day, to go inward, whether it's a walk outside or a meditation or journaling alone, to really just clear my head.
Mm.
It makes me feel so good no matter what else I have in my life, whether I have, a lot of money coming in or a new house or a great new job opportunity. If I don't have that time to go inward, I feel like something's missing. And there's only one life to live here. So I think it's important to make sure that you feel good doing it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Thank you so much for coming on. This was perfect. Guys, go click all the links. There's going to be a lot of them. Do your test first. Get to know your type, and then simultaneously sign up for all the mini and freebies, and then email Kaitlyn and get to work. Get to work. 2025 is around the corner. It's the perfect time. Start thinking about this and start off 2025 with an authentic foot forward. Kaitlyn, thank you so much.
Thank you.